Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to How Copper Became King number 6. And what this is really shaping up to be is how the copper snake was crowned, that we now know is the orange-colored copper Donald Trump. What are we going to look at today? Well, we're going to look into the copper top batteries. We're going to look at helium red balloons and the twin Abraham Lincolns in a 1960s TV series called Time Tunnel. Now, before we get into all that, look at what's happening on the world stage. We are now about to send 1,500 Army troops. Yes, you heard me correctly. Army troops into Minnesota. Martial law is finally here. If you haven't been keeping up on this, essentially some of these ICE agents were attacked. And so now, of course, this is going to justify the Insurrection Act. All of that had to happen based on Jan 6. That had to happen first to even put the... This is now Trump's retribution. Everything was planned out exactly how they wanted it. And now we are going to have armed American troops in our major cities. Once we cross this line, there's no turning back. Now, let's get into how this fits into how copper became king, because this just didn't happen overnight. Trump was crowned as the copper snake long ago. Let's start to break some of this down in this video from 5 years ago, streamed on October 23rd, 2020, just as we were in the midst of the pandemic, and we were talking about all this. Let's take a look. Never trust a red balloon. Why not? Because red balloons, as we've uncovered, have some hidden meanings behind them. Helium, the sun god. Here's the red balloon in this Duracell child safety ad brickhouse locator. Let me pull this up. As this woman's child goes missing, she finds the child after she sees him carrying his red balloon. Now, something else we're going to talk about today is the copper nickel. You don't ever want to trust a copper nickel either. Now, up to this point, we've done a lot of work on exposing the coin shortage on this channel, and we revealed to you guys that copper is going to be needed for the 5G Wiz infrastructure. All of the base stations that connect the network need lots and lots of copper. And as we know, many, many more base stations will be needed for 5G Wiz than there were for 4G. So I can almost guarantee you that as 5G Wiz comes online, they're going to either do away with coins completely, or they're going to drastically change the formulation to remove most of the copper. Most coins have copper. Mostly copper, actually. 75 to 90% copper. So why even put copper inside of a coin? There's a lot of other cheaper metals they could use. They can make them all nickel if they wanted to. Why put the copper inside of them? Because I believe that they are basically hiding in plain sight the accumulation of copper in the circulation of money. All those metric tons of copper just circulating around in our economy could easily be turned in as they go through the banks. All money goes through banks, right? And as it goes into the banks, they'll simply divert it to copper smelting and pull all that copper out. And that will become our technocracy. It will become our prison as 5G comes online. This is what they want to do. Now I'm interrupting myself because now we know that essentially the circulation of money, the circulation of coins being copper, acts almost as the copper blue blood circulating through our economy, the snake blood. Now, I know snakes might not have copper blood, but in this case, the copper blue blood is apparent in this. Now, this is, if you're just tuning in, this is from 5 years ago. We were already talking about the technocracy that we're experiencing right now, 5 years later, just as we said it would, and they would be using 5G infrastructure to get there. The police state, they're basically doing facial recognition on these people, real-time network capabilities. Palantir has given ICE a software program that can actually find people's faces and things like that and put them into a database and track them. So this is all very real, you guys. So let's keep listening here. There's a lot of other ways to get copper, but it's a lot more expensive. So they've got this secret storehouse of copper hiding in plain sight. It's the serpent. And if you can imagine this copper running through the arteries like veins running through our economy, that's pretty much tantamount to what's going on. Let me do a quick sound check. There's something weird going on because azurite, which is blue copper, it's basically copper that is, what do they call it? Oxidized. Sometimes it oxidizes blue, other times it oxidizes green, but they call this azurite. And another name that azurite goes by, let me show you some pictures of this azurite. This is it here. It's this bluish color. Pure azurite comes in this form here. And they call it the blue, or they call it the demon, copper demon. Look at this. Now, I'm interrupting myself again. We're back in 2026 because now we know that Oz, A-Z-O-Z, azurite. You see how all this connects back around now? Let's keep listening. That's pure azurite right there. And look at this. The copper demon. Cupronickel, which is what copper demon means. Let's go down in here. Now, I told you at the beginning of the show, don't ever trust a cupronickel or a copper nickel. And now we know why. Because it's a copper demon. And it makes you wonder, right? Colin Kaepernick, his name basically means copper demon. What about Nickelodeon? Nick means demon. Now we know where old Saint Nick came from, right? Very strange matrix that we find ourselves in when we begin to think about the root meanings of these words. Now here's Alice Cooper. So look at his hat. He's got Lincoln's tall hat, this is one of his favorite hats to wear. Maybe Cooper really is copper, and maybe Lincoln was in fact some kind of demon. Pennywise the clown. So we figured out that copper and 5G whiz are synonymous. So a copper top battery commercial about a child tracking device is a little bit creepy. And that's what we're going to look at right now. This is the Duracell copper top battery ad for Brickhouse. And they teamed up with Brickhouse, which makes GPS devices, to track your child. Now this had a lot of pushback because parents were very upset about this because they were very fearful. They weren't upset about the red balloon, but they were upset and in fear that they were being told that their child could get abducted unless they get one of these child trackers, right? And so I decided to take a closer look at this commercial. And there's the red balloon. Her child goes missing. But before she finds him, she dumps her purse out. And all these things come out of her purse, but they only choose to show 3 items. A phone, the child locator, and a bottle of Vaseline. Bizarre. So like I tell you, never trust a red balloon. Now, Pennywise and Lincoln. And all of you heard Lincoln come up inside the debate again. Once again, we were talking about Lincoln and how it fits into all this probably 3 months ago is when we started this journey. And when we were doing that, nobody was ever talking about Lincoln. There was a couple mentions, but now all of a sudden, they can't keep Lincoln out of their mouths. And it's funny because they have no idea. They're not watching this channel. They have no idea that every time they open their mouth and confirm everything the Most High has been showing us in advance, that it's burying them, that more and more people are coming to Christ because they're realizing what's really happening here. And that's what's really happening. Why is Lincoln so important in relation to the pennies and the copper and electricity? It's because Lincoln basically started the electronic age, or the age of electricity, they call it, when electricity began to be wrapped around the entire planet. And many of you had mentioned that in the early 1900s, when we had our first PLAGUE, that it could have been caused by this worldwide electricity, because the revolution had caused all these wires to be placed all over the world. In fact, there was a transatlantic copper telegraph cable, went right under the Atlantic Ocean, and it connected America to England. Make sure our sound's good. You came forward and said that this copper cable had 7 copper lines in it. Now, one of you came forward and said that you knew somebody who got the contract to replace those copper wires with fiber optic cables, and that they then pulled up those copper wires and made a fortune off of it. We're talking thousands of miles of 7 copper cables. Absolutely, there would be a fortune, like digging up treasure. Then, of course, they replaced that line with fiber optic, and the rest is history. So, there's something strange going on here. 1858 is when that copper cable was laid. Of course, Lincoln didn't get shot until like 1865. He was president in 1861. So, very much so, the electric revolution basically started. In fact, we showed you Lincoln's red balloons, which were these balloons that went up over the Confederate armies and spied on them and gave intelligence back so that they could win the war, right? Civil War. So, who is Brickhouse? Well, if I didn't close those, here it is. This is Brickhouse, and they do GPS tracking. They're not a very big company, but when you think about how child tracking, which to me sounds a lot like child traffic king, there's something weird about that. These are RFID locators. And what they do is they put this little thing on the child's belt, and then the mom hits the locator, as you just saw in the commercial, and finds the child. But this may have been a precursor to what we have going on now with CV19 and tracking, contact tracing. Now, Duracell had an agreement with Brickhouse, and they basically, these child locators came pre-packaged, pre-installed with Duracell batteries. That was the agreement. They probably both made a lot of money. It says that they sold out 4 months of inventory in 48 hours. Why? Because it's all about fear. This is what they're trying to do with contact tracing. Make you in fear so that you just voluntarily go along with it. And as you can see here, the parents spoke out against this because of that fear. Now, there's another aspect to this. In addition to this copper thing and the 5G whiz. And we're going to get into that right now with this montage that I uploaded last night. If you guys didn't get to see this montage, check it out. We're going to go over that right now. As soon as I pull it up here, do a quick sound check. Good. All right. Let's light this thing up here. So this is one of the alchemical symbols for copper. The other alchemical symbol for copper looks like Venus. It's the Venus symbol. And the Venus thing is weird because I believe the Venus was the actual star of Bethlehem. So you got to be careful with Venus because the enemy might be mocking Christ by attributing Venus to a female. We know Venus is attributed to copper. We know Jesus had copper skin. There's something about all this. And the thing is don't get hung up on the object being good or evil. Most objects have a duality to them. They're both good and evil, depending on who your master is. Okay, so there's obviously a lot of copper and bronze that was used in the tabernacle and some of the temples mentioned in the Old Testament. If you go back and search the word bronze or copper, you'll see that all pop up. A lot of this stuff was bronze or copper. So don't just think that bronze and copper is just naturally bad. That's not the case. But the enemy uses copper as its symbol because he is basically the lightning, the Lucifer that fell from heaven. And so be careful with that. Now, this is the alchemical, another one of the alchemical symbols for copper. And as you can see, it looks like a 3 and a 3 in a mirror facing away from each other. Some people could say it's an E and an E, but it's really a 3 and a 3. Let's keep watching here. Now, this is the copper building. These are called actually the copper buildings of Manhattan. And we drew a straight line that magically connected Trump's 40 Wall Street down here to his New Rochelle building, the Huguenots. Remember? You guys, this rabbit hole goes deep because the Huguenot, guess who was a Huguenot? Paul Revere. Remember the Reeve connection that we found? Reeves, Reset. Seemed like everyone with an R-E-E in their name was a time traveler. Christopher Reeve, Keanu Reeve, Kyle Reese. And then now we understand that Paul Revere had his own copper mine. And he was a Huguenot. And he was born on Donald Trump's mother's birthday. Now, I wish I was making all this up, but I'm not. Let's see if I've got that pulled up here. I mean, this copper matrix goes deep. Here's Paul Revere. He died. on Donald Trump's mother's birthday. Look at this. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. A lot of sixes in the date 1818. And Revere had the Revere Copper Company. The redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming. So, that's a whole another rabbit hole. But, back to this. So, on this end is 40 Wall Street, a copper top building owned by Donald Trump. It's one of his most profitable buildings. You draw a straight line from that cornerstone, it goes through this cornerstone and connects to New Rochelle. So, in the middle is the copper, the duality. There are two Trumps. These are copper buildings. Let's keep going. Now, obviously, you see the alchemical symbol in likeness. It's not exact, but it's the likeness of it there. Look at the stair steps buildings next to the copper buildings. And I don't know what these buildings are, but there's obviously a connection because look at the tops of the buildings. Boom, 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 boom. Now, I didn't notice this the first time around. So these sound troubles actually are going to help us, because now we're getting even more detailed. Because those of you with eyes to see understand what those stair steps look like. They look like Trump Tower from the air. So there's a definitive connection here. What I may do is go into Google Earth and pull this up. We got to do this, you guys. Again, I wasn't planning on this, but back this out. Turn 3D buildings off. This will probably go down as one of the bigger discoveries on this channel. So I'm going to make sure we get this right. This down here is 40 Wall Street. It has a copper roof. This is Trump's building. So I'm going to show you in 3D. When you draw a line from the cornerstone of this building toward the copper buildings that you just saw on that frame. All right, let that load up. So you can see the copper top there. Now, we covered this building here because it was in an episode of Person of Interest. They were down in the vault where the money is. Okay, so we decoded that. Now, let's follow this red line. You need 3 objects to make an alignment. You can't just start lining things up between each other unless it lines up with like the side of the building. Here are the copper buildings. Let's zoom in on here. Let's turn the 3D on. Buildings that look a lot like Trump Tower from the air. Those load up. For some reason, there isn't a 3D view of the copper buildings for some reason. Okay. Now we're going to turn 3D back off. And we're going to take you to the third piece of the alignment. This is simple geometry. Don't let people get it twisted. Trolls come on here and go, you can draw a line between anything and it'll line up. Well, that's not true. You need 3 objects. And for them to perfectly line up like this means something. They began the first quarantine. National Guard came in. We drove through the quarantine. Remember that? Here's Trump Plaza. Right to the cornerstone. Plaza. It looks a lot like a transistor, doesn't it? See on a motherboard, doesn't it? He's the 5G whiz president, you guys. He's the electrical president. He's like a modern day Tesla, but it's all undercover. It's all undercover. Yeah, let's close this. Tower. Because Trump Tower looks like the stair step. Oh well, I already closed Google Earth, but you guys have seen Trump Tower from the air. Now, Tesla died in this building. This is the Wyndham New Yorker, and this is a typical floor plan. Look at the 33. This is another floor. As you can see, the middle part of the 3s extended a little bit. I think this is why they coined the term electrical engineering. The copper time machine. Once again, copper and brass. Now, this is the Time Machine 2002, a remake, obviously, and again, lots of copper and brass. And what you're going to notice too is he pulls out this hexagon picture of his girlfriend or his wife, and it's interesting because this hexagon basically stands for the time cube, the time prison that we're all locked in. This is why they tell us that there is a cube at the North Pole of Saturn, because Saturn is Chronos, that's time. It's a time prison, and it isn't until you unfold the cube and do a cross and keep your eyes fixed on heaven, on Jesus, and step out of the duality, step out of picking man to rule you, picking Biden or Trump. Until you step out of that duality, you'll never see Christ. You'll never see the forest from the trees. That's how it works. Now watch this hexagon he pulls out, because many of you that follow the channel and are actually absorbing what I'm telling you, you'll understand that this hexagon has reappeared several times. It was in the time travel film Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. On the wall, we saw the two hexagons. We've seen it many other places as well. Now, this is back to Dark. And in Dark, this guy, his name is Tannhaus. Now, we looked into Tan and Tanner and Biff Tannen and the demon called Tannen. There's actually a demon named Tannen. There's a demon named Bifrons, too. Bifrons is the name of Janus. That's Janus' name is Bifrons. It means two faces. And so we looked into all this, and this guy Tannhaus in the series Dark, he builds the portable time machine that you saw earlier. Now this one he builds is a more permanent time machine in this basement of this nuclear reactor. And look at the core of the time machine. It looks like a CV molecule. Does it not? And now we understand the copper tan that Trump wears. It's all fitting together, isn't it? Let's keep watching. Now, here is the proof that most coins have copper. It's a stockpile, a storehouse of almost infinite magnitude of copper, floating around right under all of our noses. All they have to do is make coins obsolete, collect all the copper, and they've got all the copper that they'll need for this infrastructure. 5G whiz. Now, since this video aired 5 years ago, they have already taken the penny out of circulation. The copper on the pennies represented about 60% of overall copper use in America. Let's keep watching. The other coins are coming next. Now, it's weird. Coin, I guess you call it, not statistics. The word I'm looking for is description. The description of coins are very specific, and people that collect coins know this. You know that they have the stats on coins, and the descriptive qualities of these coins is very detailed. So I'm looking at some of these coin descriptions in my research about copper, and I come to understand that there are ridges around the edge of these coins, and that the quarter has like 118 ridges around the edge, and the dime has 118, 119, 118, and it always has had that number of ridges. Those numbers are very cryptic. 118 is 6 and 6 and 6, D, 60, or that's 180, but same thing. And then you've got 119, which we all know what that means backwards. So what does all this mean? Well, these coins have a core of copper. That's the serpent. The nickel is the coating. And now the copper serpent is coming out of its skin. Now, we saw this before. Where do we see this? We saw this in Janus. Stargate Atlantis. This is Janus from Stargate Atlantis. And in the series, he builds the first time machine. He builds it inside of a spaceship. And look at his shirt. It's the copper coming out of the nickel. Copper nickel. Again, Copper associated with time travel. See how the sleeves are splitting open is the design here? It's very clear to me.
Look at most nights if you have time.
Now this is from Duel, and this was Steven Spielberg who made this movie. It's an old movie from the 70s. He stops at a rattlesnake gas station where they've got a rattlesnake pit. Well, where do they put the rattlesnake pit? Remember, the rattlesnake is the copperhead. The copperhead is the serpent. It always has been. He walks to the phone booth where it's full of more copper coins, right? Whoa. Look at the twin drums. The movie's called Duel. Duel means a fight between two people. Gemini president. Let's keep watching.
Weird place for a telephone booth.
Weird place for a telephone booth. Well, we know it's not so weird now that you have eyes to see.
Place for a telephone booth.
So, what you're looking at here is the precursor to 5G Whiz. Alright? Telephone booth using copper to create the matrix, using copper to create the technocracy, the time prison. You guys, as soon as this all comes online, driverless cars, all this stuff, driverless cars need 5G Whiz infrastructure. You need instant GPS location. It has to be exact, and it has to be instant in order for a driverless car to work. Otherwise, the car doesn't know where it's at. So, another time travel film, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, in the copper phone booth. So there you have it. There is something about the copper that relates to time travel. Now what you're looking at are the two copper buildings in Manhattan, and they look very much like one of the alchemical symbols for copper. It's basically a number 3 mirrored forwards and backwards. Tesla's Wyndham, New Yorker building where he died has the same bizarre floor plan. The 33s mirrored away from each other. And it just so happens that one of his designs, at least, has a 33 encoded in it as well, facing away from each other. Now, what could this mean? Well, copper is very important, apparently, to time travel. This is a scene from the film 13 Ghosts. And now the rest of this commentary is basically repeating what I just said earlier in the show, so I'm not going to belabor that. But if you haven't seen that montage that we uploaded last night, go ahead and take a look at it. And you can share that. It's very shareable, as you can see. Let's go into the chat here. Glad we got the sound issues all worked out. Apologies. All right, let's get into Time Tunnel and these Lincoln twins. And we can finish up the show with that today. Let's take a look.
Is it possible that Lincoln was killed in 1861?
1966. That's Trump's number, the 66. This is when the Time Tunnel episode came out. The Time Tunnel, TTT, Trump, Trump, Trump. Let's watch.
Lincoln is coming through Baltimore on his way to his inauguration.
That would mean someone impersonated him for the next 4 years.
We will have the opportunity to kill him within the next 12 hours.
Appearances can be most deceiving, but not in this case, James Kirk.
Star Trek 1966, another Lincoln episode in a different TV series. Season 3, episode 22. 3 times 22 is 66.
I am Abraham Lincoln.
Would you care to take a look? 44 caliber. Beautiful little pistol. Just like the gun that killed Lincoln. Not like, Mr. Colton. The same gun.
The gun that murdered Lincoln was a 44 caliber single-shot muzzle-loading Derringer. Did you ever own such a gun? Yes.
Two.
He says 2 of them. Twin guns. 2 44 caliber guns. Is 88. Time travel. 2 Lincolns.
A present for my daddy. For the war. A birthday present. He sent to Philadelphia for them. He said that no well-dressed poker player could fill a flush without them. Made in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Spelled with 1 R. My name is spelled with 2.
Extraordinary.
Carver's been down through 12 feet of water. The chest isn't there.
12 feet of water. Of course. That well was 20 feet deep when he threw it in. Mr. Williams,
Yes, sir.
where did you find this chest?
In the old well on the plantation where I flung it in 1861.
It's buried under 8 feet of mud. Thank you, Francine. I'll take care of it. If the prosecution intends to prove that Mr. Derringer owned a brace of 44 caliber pistols, identical in make and model to the assassination weapon, we concede the fact. These will prove conclusively that Derringer could not have sold one of those pistols to John Wilkes Booth.
Mint condition. Never even been fired. You will please notice, sir, the colonel had Marsh Yancey's name engraved on each barrel.
By killing Lincoln here in Baltimore, the Southern secessionists will be blamed.
But it's almost as though the tunnel is making its own projection, independent of the probe on Doug and Tony.
And in revenge, the northern states will invade the South.
Did you fire those shots? Well, I reckon I did. I can't kill rabbits by spitting on them.
Got pockets everywhere? I can pull rabbits out of here.
Rabbits? Well, sure. Yeah.
As far as we can tell, based on our years of research, these portals include copper, the Lincoln archetype, some kind of rabbit, mirrors, and banks or money. These very themes repeat in the film Somewhere in Time.
This section of town's home to half the rabbits in the county. Rabbits.
Well, Mr. Pinkerton, I found the man who fired those shots, sir. Just a hunter after rabbits.
That rabbit hunter could have been a ruse. This platform was left unguarded for a few minutes.
And one more thing. Does anyone else see this rabbit, okay? I'm not the only one who sees that rabbit, right? And one more thing. Does anyone else see this rabbit, okay? I'm not the only one who sees that rabbit, right?
With the Triumph shirt on, Triumph Motorcycles, Triumph Trump. Trump's building an Arc of Triumph in D.C. Donnie Darko. Who else played Donnie Darko?
It's wearing glasses, is that real? Okay. I think this might be a Donnie Darko situation. Fantastic movie, by the way. Love Jake Gyllenhaal.
Mr. President, do you still measure time in minutes? We can convert to it, sir.
I understand President Lincoln's coming aboard, sir.
Full dress uniforms. Full dress? Presidential honors? What is all this nonsense, Mr. Dickerson? Mineral, he called it. Like living rock. And that became Lincoln. I couldn't tell. Just what was it you locked onto before you beamed him aboard?
All right. What is this here? Okay, copper under a microscope. Is it alive? They call copper the living rock. Some scientists have asked themselves when they observe copper particles swimming like a school of fish under a microscope. When physicist Narayan Menon and this other guy agitated tiny copper rods in a liquid-filled container. The rods mysteriously aligned themselves and began moving in the same direction, resembling schools of fish. Only copper rods with pinched ends, shaped like rolling pins, exhibited the unique swarming motion. Wow.
His kindness, his gentle wisdom, his humor, everything about him is so right. I cannot conceive it possible that Abraham Lincoln could have actually been reincarnated.
Mr. Scott.
The charming negress. Oh, forgive me, my dear.
See, in our century, we've learned not to fear words.
I know that in my time some use that term as a description of property.
But why should I object to that term, sir?
I'm observing the alien. But at least somebody agrees with us he's an alien.
Yes, of course he's an alien.
And he's potentially dangerous. It is a magnificent work of duplication.
And slings and spears. Slings. Mr. President, you used a sling as a boy. Indeed, I did.
So, obviously, the David and Goliath connection, Maduro was essentially accusing Trump of the David and Goliath scenario. Of course, them being David and Trump being Goliath. And Goliath wore copper. 88% copper is brass. Let's keep watching.
You used a sling as a boy. Indeed, I did.
It was so hard for me to see him die again.
Captain Kirk, the planet has resumed its normal appearance.
Allow me.
So this is about illusions, isn't it? It's about doubles, doppelgangers, and here we are. So that's what I had for you guys today. Tomorrow, you are not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. I Pet Goat 2, from start to finish, it was hiding in plain sight the whole time. The entire I Pet Goat 2 animation from 2012 is in fact about child trafficking. We're going to go through it from cover to cover. I already put together my show notes for tomorrow, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. It's insane. And many of the pieces that we've decoded over the years fit into it as well. We just hadn't put the whole picture together yet. So you'll see a lot of repeats of things that we've already decoded that fit right into it. All right, I'm in the chat, you guys. So now you understand why these re-uploads are important. This tells the whole story of how Trump became the Copper King. He is the Copper Snake King. The orange, the tan, it's all there, you guys. It's all there. Now you're going to see this tomorrow because the Antichrist figure in I Pet Goat 2 has this tannish orange skin as well. And so I think we figured that out as well. All right. All right, you guys, I'm going to end the show here. So this is Shareable and kind of short. This is a very important show that will segue into tomorrow's show. So I love each and every one of you, and please enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Much love.